that metal interview.
Even Up the Score, album title of our guests for this episode, band by the name of Wayward Sons, all the way from the country of England. And we appreciate your time. Thank you guys for tuning in and clicking on our podcast, That Metal Interview podcast, with your host, James, myself. Even Up the Score. It's now available, third album by Wayward Sons. You guys can stream it, download it, purchase it, share, blah, blah, blah. You know what to do. And so we have on this episode the great vocalist, very well-known guy in the music business, Mr. Toby Jepson, frontman for Wayward Sons, of course. And what a talent, man. What a talent. And he's a producer also, and he is the front-man for Wayward Sons. And also joining us is the bassist for Wayward Sons, Mr. Nic Wastell, if I am pronouncing that right. Wastell. Nic joins us also and chats with us. So thank you to Nic, and thank you to Toby, true rock stars, man. Thank you for making time and chat with us and give us an update on Wayward Sons' third album. Very, very good stuff, man. So let's go ahead and check out one of their jams, the latest jam from Wayward Sons, video and single. This is called Bloody Typical. We'll be right back.
Some
Now, wasn't that some awesome stuff, man? Some very, very good rock and roll. I call it rock and roll. You can call it hard rock. You can call it metal. To me, it's just awesome stuff, rock and roll for you guys. And what a treat for us rockers, man, headbangers. Wayward Sons, you guys got to check it out if you haven't heard of them before. True hard rocking people, man. Awesome band, awesome vocalist, awesome melodies and everything. I'm just a fan, you know. So anyways, let's go to the interview and speak to Mr. Toby Jepson and Nic Wastell of Wayward Sons. Here we go. Enjoy. Yeah, so let's start with, we're here to talk about your new album, of course, Even Out, the score coming out October 8th, Frontiers Music. Who wrote this album as far as lyrics and riffs? How many of you guys are involved in that, or is it just Toby and one more guy, or who? What's the process here?
Well, I mean, it's a kind of, by and large, sort of the bulk of the actual songwriting is down to myself, but I take it into the band and then we develop the songs. You know, that's the kind of process. I mean, I always, my songs tend to be formed around, you know, a number of things. It usually happens all at once. It's not just one thing. It's, you know, I tend to sort of get a riff and a vocal line and a melody and a set of a few words, you know, that kind of get the central idea of it, you know, across. And I will then develop that idea to a point where I'm happy with a basic arrangement, if you like. And then I take it into the guys, and then we all work on it together, sort of thing. I mean, Sam being an infinitely better guitar player than me, well, obviously, I tend to sort of come up with a lot of the riffs, but what he will then do with them is he'll take them and make them his own, sort of thing. So it's a very collaborative, collective sort of experience.
Very cool. For people that don't know, how was Wayward Sons born? How did this come about? I know you've had a whole career, basically, Toby, before this, right? We'll get to that in a bit. But for people that don't know, you know, can you tell us how that was born, this band, you know?
Well, I'll start it off, then Nic can follow up. Yeah, I mean, essentially, I was approached by Frontiers Music, which, as you probably know, are an Italian label. Yeah. And they're famous for putting together sort of projects with bands or artists that have had big careers in the past, and they want to help them sort of, you know, keep making records. And that was exactly the premise that they approached me on, really. And initially, it was, you know, a project that was quite fluid. They initially wanted me to reform the Little Angels, which I wasn't prepared to do. And I wanted to make something entirely independent, you know. So that was the process. I accepted the challenge, and really then it was a case of trying to find musicians that I really wanted to work with, you know. And so, you know, I started to sort of pull those people in. You know, one of which was Nic. So perhaps Nic, do you want to take over?
Yeah, I mean, Toby had produced a couple of albums for my previous band in the previous couple of years.
What band was that, if we can know?
It's a band called Chrome Molly. Cool. New wave of British heavy metal type band. Toby and I were on the same label in the 80s, so awesome. That's how we know each other. And Toby did some production, or all the production actually, on those, on a couple of albums. They came out on Adel Records, Ear Music over here, and I started badgering Toby. It was about time he started doing something else, little thinking that he'd be giving me a call to say, well, you're doing it as well. So that kind of ended up, yeah, okay, I'm in, and then Toby really found the other guys, and Sammy'd worked with in the studio, again, on another project. And I think Phil had applied for a job in a band that an audition and didn't get the gig, but Toby thought he should have got the gig, so he stole him for his band. I think that's about right, isn't it, Toby?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, Phil sort of, I think, you may know Phil Martini from actually playing with Joe Elliott from Def Leppard. He's got another band, the Down and Outs.
Down and Outs, yeah.
Yeah, and Phil's played all the drums on those records and done a lot of touring with that band. So and I'd seen Phil play at a big festival in London called the High Voltage Festival, and I just thought he was fantastic. And like Nic says, I'd actually auditioned him for a production project I was working on a year or so before, and I hadn't actually made the connection at that particular point. But he just played. He was just a great natural player. Really liked his vibe, and so yeah, it was one of those situations where it was a bit sort of like heart in the mouth when we all got in the room together, because up until that point we hadn't all been in a room together. In fact, the rest of the guys didn't know each other. So, but fortunately, it all worked out really, really great. And you know, the first album, Ghosts Yet to Come, that we made back in God knows when, was a real baptism by fire. But it really worked. You know, the relationships and the personalities involved in this project really chimed. And I think that's the reason why we're still making records together. You know,
awesome drummer. I mean, the whole band is badass. I mean, you need a good drummer. I'm a musician myself here in Texas. You know, local stuff. You know, and it all starts with the beat. You need to have a very solid tempo, and then you build from there, I guess, huh? So you got a great drummer.
Oh, absolutely, and you know, it's the age-old adage in the music business: the two most difficult things to find to make a band great are the drummer and the singer. You know, and I think, you know, thank God we've got a good drummer. That's what I say.
You're a great vocalist too. You're badass. All of you guys are badass.
Yeah. Well, thank you, sir.
So I saw your newest video for Bloody Typical. Very, very cool stuff. Cool song. Very catchy also. Good job on that. Who came up with this idea of cartoons in the video? And very cool, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's an evolution. You know, we've been doing videos, like continuing narrative videos for our albums since the first record. You know,
yeah.
we did the zombie one on the first album, and then the clowns one on the second one. But because of lockdown over here, and because of the COVID situation, we were unable to kind of do the same sort of thing this time. So I just sort of said to the guys, look, I think we ought to try some animation, because it's a kind of it's an easy way of dealing with this. So we can have, because we can literally sort of just have an animator sit there and put stuff together. But of course, it's very expensive, and it's often very difficult to find someone who's very good at it, especially for the kind of price range that we were in.
Yeah.
But fortunately, I found a young kid who actually only lives down the road from me, surprisingly, Ewan Friel. And he really got it. He really, after me explaining the sort of idea of the band and talking to him about the songs, I left him to it, and he kind of basically came back with I think a 3 or 4 minute animation that we then cut up, and then utilising all of these videos for this record. And yeah, I think it's actually crazily turned out really well when it could have easily gone so badly wrong.
Right. So I take it he does the album covers too, right?
No, it's not the same guy actually.
Oh.
No, Ewan's the animator, but the guy that does the album covers is a chap that we found quite a while ago, a guy called Stuart Dilly. And actually Nic, I mean, you can pick up this story because Stuart worked for you, didn't he, initially?
Well, he worked on. He actually works for a friend of mine's company based in the UK and designs jewellery. But we knew he was a good artist, and he did one of the Chrome Molly album covers, and Toby really liked that. So when we were looking, I think he redesigned the Little Angels logo as well, didn't he, Toby?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, and he was just a really great guy. And I rang him up. Nic introduced me to him, and I just rang Stuart up and sort of said, look, I've got this new band going on. I'm in love with the idea of kind of like the old 1950s kind of American, sort of pulp comics, the amazing stories, weird tales, those kinds of things. And I love all that stuff. And
good stuff.
I love all that artwork, and and the Crumb comics and all the rest of it. So he sort of like listened to what I had to say, listened to the music, and came up with that first sleeve, and then we've continued that theme, and it's been very successful for us, really. And I do think that this new album sleeve he's come up with for Even Up the Score is the best one he's come out with out of the three. I absolutely love it. I think it's an absolute proper work of art,
So this Even Up the Score, what can fans expect from this album? I mean, is it a little bit? Is it a continuation of your last one, or you think it's a new approach? Or
I mean, this album was supposed to be the companion album to the last one. We originally went in to record 2 albums, so we split the tracks down the middle and carried some over for this second album. So they've got a very similar feel, but the way we ended up having to finish this album through lockdowns and social distancing and all that sort of current stuff that happens over here has given it a more immediate feel, I think, and it's got a different kind of energy to the last album, even though the backing tracks were originally done at the same time in the majority of cases. So yeah, it's come out with a different attack and a different vibe. And it's amazing, really, how you can you can start a song and revisit it a year later and give it almost a different feel to what it would have had if it had been on the last album. So quite cool, really.
Yeah,
we learned a lot. I think we learned a lot, James. Through the process of making these records, and I think a massive part of being in a band, if you want to try and have any level of longevity, is learning to understand each other, learning to know each other's strengths and play to them, and you go through the trials and tribulations of that. And I think the thing is with this record, for me, it's certainly the best out of the 3 for me, and I think I say that for one reason only, really. That I just think it feels more confident. It feels like a band that have found their stride, and it is our 3rd record, and I do think it takes a while. These things don't just happen.
Yeah.
It takes quite a while of figuring each other out. And the weird thing for me about this record, which I think, I always remember you saying, Nick, when we were sequencing the Truth album, is that I remember you saying, "Oh, we're leaving some of the best stuff off," and actually, in a crazy way, I think there is a very distinct difference between the material that's on this record and on the Truth. I mean, on the Truth album, there are some crossovers. I mean, think for instance, the first track, Even Up the Score, we were going to put on the Truth album originally, but we left it off for a number of reasons. But I do think things like Big Day, Bloody Typical, and some of the other sort of I guess some of the other songs on there, they seem to fit on this album that I don't think would have fitted on the Truth album. So I think in a crazy way it sort of worked out. I don't know how that happened, but it did.
Sounds great. So Toby, I understand you're a producer also. When you produce a band, what do you look for, or do you just concentrate on simplicity, or do you take the band a different direction, or do you just follow the groove, or what's the mindset on being a producer there? Yeah,
I mean, I think it's a kind of being a producer is a bit of a weird job. I mean, my search with the music, with any band, is to just bring the best out of them. Help them to realise themselves, help them to focus what the best stuff that they do, and try and help them to get rid of the stuff that isn't so good. It's that sort of thing. Sometimes the best form of production is doing no production at all. Sometimes rearranging completely and taking things apart and then rebuilding it from the ground up is what is required. So it's really just down to what the situation is and who the band are. But I will say that the primary thing that I'm interested in is the songwriting. The only thing I'm really concerned about is the songs. It's absolutely sonic. The sonics are absolutely secondary as far as I'm concerned. It's got to be about the things that the band are talking about, the narratives, the identity of what it is. I mean, one of the first questions I ask a band when I'm working with them, if they're a young band, is, what are you trying to say? What are you? What is it all about? And if they can answer those questions, then we've probably got a chance, if you know what I mean. Because it's there's got to be something that's uniquely you. It's no good just copying the latest record that someone's produced, because there already is one of them. What we want is your version of you. So it's quite old school the way I do things, but that's my approach.
Very cool. I saw an interview where you speak of simplicity. Did you guys, as far as Wayward Sons, did you guys concentrate on simplicity, or what did you guys go for there?
But sometimes that's born out of necessity, the simplicity of it. I mean, look, we didn't have a blueprint for the band as such, but we drew on our influences, and while we were all from the rock world and the heavy rock world, we were also punk fans. I was 15 when Sex Pistols album came out, and that changed the way you thought about music and the way you played it at the time. That it formed what we were doing. We were never going to be able to make a prog rock album, with this band. Phil likes straight down the line drumming. Sam's a bit more of an elaborate musician than us, and probably could play in a prog band. But me and Toby and Phil have formed a rhythm section born out of sweat and tears. It can be simple, and Toby's songs make for that. It's the message is in the lyrics as much as anything, and we don't pad them out with too much stuff. We come from that world where a song should be 3 and 4 minutes long, and that works for us.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more with that. It's the art of simplicity is the hardest thing to learn. I mean, some of my favourite artists of all time, are absolute masters of songcraft, utilising the simplest route to the message. And I think that's a kind of a lost art, really. I think people are obsessed with things that don't matter anymore. To me, I get really bored of hearing the same chord progressions, the same approaches to the vocal style, the same approaches to the melody. It seems like everyone's just becoming a kind of a cookie cutter style rock and roll band, and to me that's not the point. The bands that we all loved were bands that stood on their own 2 feet, had something unique about what they did, because they were able to tap into themselves, rather than sort of have to reflect what was everyone else, sort of thing. So that's kind of where it comes from, really. I mean, I often sort of think of someone like, say, Bruce Springsteen as a good example. I mean, Springsteen is an incredible songwriter, but there's nothing complicated about Bruce Springsteen songs, and therein lies the beauty of them.
Yeah.
It's very easy to understand them, and they communicate a very simple idea in a beautifully poetic fashion, and I think that's all you can hope for. I'm not really into the sort of techniques, the speed, and sort of overcomplication. Not at all.
Uh-huh. Well, congrats on that. I mean, that Bloody Typical, I mean, it's just awesome. It's very catchy and very commercial rock, very, very cool. And that's why you guys are having success, because I think you guys have good music, man. You got the right mindset right there, for sure.
Well, that's very, very cool. I mean, Bloody Typical is a good example, I think, of a really, what I love about this band and love about working with these guys is that, I could have taken that song in to a bunch of other people that were hell bent on just being a heavy rock band.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have even attempted it. You know what I mean? But because we have eclectic tastes, and we all recognise the value of each of our opinions, and we can bring that to bear on an idea. It allowed that song to evolve, and no one was going, we can't do that because it's too this, it's too that.
Yeah.
We have none of that. We have an open mind about it all, and it ends up being what it is, and that's why I think that's why it works.
For people that, just change the subject a little bit, for people that don't know, talk to us a little bit about Little Angels, and give us, is there an update on that, or is that retired?
Well, I mean, Little Angels was the band that I made my name in, and was a very, very successful European band. We had #1 records and did some big tours and toured with a lot of artists. We toured with Van Halen and Bon Jovi and all kinds of people back in the day. Yep. But it is a long time gone. I mean, we signed our record deal in 1989 and we finished in 1994. So it's a long time ago. But we did, we do still talk to each other, and we did a Reformation tour back in 2012 in the UK, and maybe at some point in the future we might do something else together, but it will probably only to celebrate an aspect of what the band achieved back in that period, like a sort of like a classic album thing or something. But I'm very, very happy with pursuing what we're doing with Wayward Sons. I genuinely say this, that I think the Even Up the Score album is the best record I've ever been involved with making.
Awesome.
I feel very connected to it. I think it's the closest I've ever come to being completely and utterly real and utterly honest about what I wanted to do as a musician, if you know what I mean. And that's it's very hard to make good records. It's very hard to make records that you can honestly say with your hand on your heart that it's completely you. Do you know what I mean? It's not been infiltrated by other things, and I feel that about this record.
So, both of you, is there anything left in your bucket list? What do you guys want to do in the future? What's left in your bucket list?
Well, tour the US would be pretty cool with this band.
Yeah.
To be honest, that would be my. I've never toured the US. I've played in New York a few times, but that's, I'd love to get there and take this band, right across the states. I think that would be the one for me.
I agree with that. I think if we could, if we can sort of stretch our legs on this record and get some opportunities to play outside of the UK, especially in America and Canada and South America, that would be amazing. Obviously we're going through a bit of a difficult period in the UK at the moment with Brexit and all the rest of it. So we don't quite know how that's going to affect our European travel. But at the end of the day, if this record does well for us and people like it, then if a promoter's interested in bringing us over, then we'd be there in a shot. So it'd be a dream come true. It really would. That
was one of my questions right there. Any plans to come play in America? But you guys beat me to the you guys beat me to the punch there. So
yeah. Well, we would love to. I mean, again, it's just one of those things. It's a very difficult thing to put together unless you've got a promoter who really wants it to happen, if you know what I mean. And that's going to be governed by success of the record. So we just really hope that there's enough of a voice of people's appreciation of the music in America, and we can utilize that. That would be the dream.
So give us your best gig and your worst gig, each one of you.
Oh my God! With this band or in life?
Overall, in life.
I'll go first then. Well, best gig probably for me has to be Brixton Academy on the Steel Panther tour, which was phenomenal. Or when we played Download a couple of years ago, they were both really magical for various reasons. Just when everything comes together and you feel like you're flying. Worst gig, wow. You go, Toby. I'm going to have to think about the worst gig.
You managed to avoid that one. Okay, so I've got quite a few best gigs. Little Angels played at Wembley Stadium with Bryan Adams in front of 70,000 people or whatever it was, and that was a very special day. So I think that and Hammersmith, when we first headlined Hammersmith with Little Angels, they were incredible shows. But I have to say, I agree with Nic. I think for me, with Wayward Sons, it was playing the tent in Download. That was a watershed moment. It was one of those moments that I just didn't expect it to happen. The tent was utterly packed to the rafters, and It was a hot day, and we came out and we just played the gig of our lives, and we raised our game, and it was almost like the cementing of what we needed to do. It like cemented all these kind of ideas, and it just put us in a different place. So that's one of my favourite gigs of all time. One of my worst gigs, which it was quite funny, is with, again, Little Angels, where I came running down the posing ramp, because we were a successful band at this time, in front of an audience of, say, 3,500 people, tripped over my own feet and fell into the pit at the front, and I could hear the audience laughing above the PA. It was that funny. Yeah.
Wow.
So that wasn't a great moment. Yeah.
That's horrible. What a horrible.
I can't be that. I can remember playing loads and loads of club gigs, and some of those were horrible in the early days. But it's what forms you. It's what it teaches you to work an audience and to build that up. So even the worst possible gigs really have always led you on to something else, and if you can, sometimes that's what makes the band strong, you stick together through that. I mean, my previous band on and off was together since 1981, and still theoretically still could be together tomorrow if I wanted it to be. We're all friends, we know how to play, and that's all forged out of being able to play to 6 people, 5 of them who don't like you. I've done that before.
Yeah, it happens to everyone, I guess. It happens to me. It happens to everyone. Would you guys like to send a message to your fans listening to this podcast?
Absolutely. I would just like to say thank you so much. I mean, we had quite a bit of correspondence with American fans. We know that the music is getting out there, albeit quite slowly. And of course, we're on a small independent label, so it's not as easy as you might think, sort of thing. So, but the support has been fantastic, and we really appreciate all the messages of support and the messages of love for the music. And that's all we can do. We can just keep making records and hope that you guys at some point get a chance to see us come and play live.
Yeah, I echo that. I think that's exactly what anybody out there listening in the US, we're trying our hardest to come over, and we'd love to. So hope to see you all one day. It'd be great.
Awesome, guys. So hope to see you guys on the road soon, and best of luck with your career. And you guys are heading the right path for sure. You got some very, very catchy rock, man. So congrats on that.
Oh, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And, we'll do this again sometime. Thanks for the support.
Thank you guys for joining us. What a conversation. What a conversation. And don't forget to catch them on the road in November. These guys will hit the road, and you can catch them. And you can check them out. Purchase their merchandise. Wayward Sons. WAYWARD. Sons, like the son, father, son. Okay, so Wayward Sons. Their website is waywardsonsband.com. You guys can find more info on the band and possibly tour dates. Of course, music. The whole 9 yards. The whole 9 yards when you log on to their website. So check them out at waywardsonsband.com. They'll be hitting the road on November 6th in the UK for all you England rockers. They'll be there, I believe, in Buckley, in the UK, Buckley, and Stock at Sugar Mill. And from there, the other dates in Manchester, Glasgow, Newcastle, Leeds, Nottingham, Bristol, and so on and so forth. So check them out, man, live. Support them. Support live rock metal. So thank you guys for being a part of that metal interview. We truly appreciate it, man. On behalf of myself, James, thank you guys and girls, man. So thank you. Don't forget to subscribe and share and like. Thank you. Look for us on TikTok also. Don't forget to keep it metal.
That metal interview.